Chapter 3.1 The Next Afternoon. March 1998-1. The Park. The afternoon light lay flat across the park. Everything looked duller, as if the night hadn't quite let go of the city yet. The same cracked benches, the same gravel path that led you around until you realized you were just going in circles like an idiot. The same pigeons who'd been living here longer than anyone else. Cayde sat on the armrest of a bench, spinning his board between his fingers. He wasn't looking at Vexley. He didn't need to. He could feel that something had happened. "So," he started. "The redhead. That's not just hot girl. That's a problem." Vexley didn't respond. Cayde glanced sideways. "The kind that makes a guy do stupid shit. Like walk up to her at a show and try to kiss her in a bar line." Something moved at the corner of Vexley's mouth. Not a smile. More like a reflex. "Vex," he said quietly. "Did you hear me? Half the park heard you." Silence. A pigeon shuffled near his shoe. Vexley nudged it away with a small motion. Not roughly, just irritably. "So?" Cayde asked. "Was it worth it?" Vexley leaned forward. His elbows rested on his knees. "You don't get it," he said quietly. "You know me. You know how awkward I am. Normally, I can't even approach a regular girl who smiles at me and seems nice. I circle around for days. I wait until we accidentally end up next to each other. I come up with some stupid excuse." Cayde was listening now. "But she just looked at me. Probably didn't even notice. It was one moment. But when I looked into her eyes, it was like someone pulled the fuse out of me." Silence. I didn't decide to walk over. There was no plan. There was no courage. It just felt like the most natural thing in the world. Like I was always supposed to do exactly that. You know? Cayde slowly exhaled. Vexley's gaze slid to the gravel. There was this girl, who clearly could wrap an entire room around her little finger if she wanted to. Everyone watching her. Everyone wanting something from her. But there were walls around her so thick that even the biggest talkers back off. He paused for a moment. And I just walked up and almost kissed her. No explanation followed. Cayde just watched. For the first time, he wasn't grinning. "Like I said, problem," he finally said, smiling at his friend. Vexley nodded. "Yeah." Cayde jumped off the armrest. The board clacked against the concrete. "All right, so that's settled. You take the redhead, I'll take the blonde." Vexley looked up. "You always pick the blonde." "Because blondes always pick me." Cayde shrugged. For a moment, they just looked at each other. The kind of silence that holds years. Then Vexley spoke. "You notice them?" "Obviously. Not just girls. There's something about them. Some kind of sound." Cayde laughed. "Sound." "Yes, sound. Fuck you!" He raised his middle finger, emphasizing the weight of his observation. When Nova spoke, that wasn't talking. That was rhythm. Vexley finally leaned back. "We're gonna be a good team." Cayde picked up his board. The pigeons flew off, but the park stayed the same. 2. The Court. The basketball court was empty, which somehow made it look bigger. The concrete radiated the day's heat. Roxy sat under the hoop's support pole, leaning her back against the rough metal as if it were the only thing holding her together. Nova was beside her, knees pulled up, chin resting on her arms. Roxy was talking, the Roxy that only Nova ever heard. Fast, unfiltered, dangerously honest. So the idiot is sitting next to me on the armrest, and he says, with that damn British accent of his, that I should be careful because he's starting to have dangerous ideas. Dangerous ideas. Like that's a normal thing to say. She went quiet for a moment. So the whole night, I'm telling you, I was soaking through my panties. Physically, not metaphorically. I'm sitting there, and with every sentence he drops, I'm thinking I should either get up and go home or just climb him right there. But I didn't leave. And of course, I played it cool because, damn, it felt good to feel that way about someone. I've never had that. It's not just, oh, he's hot. It's more like, Jesus Christ, please, right now. It's something else. It's annoying. She laughed, a bit embarrassed. That's the sound she only makes when they're alone. Is that normal? Across the court, a bike rolled by. The chain clicked dryly. The kind of sound that always signals someone is moving on. Nova? Nova didn't speak for a long time. Her gaze was fixed on the basketball net. Then she spoke, slowly, like she was hunting for the words, which for Nova was a warning sign in itself. He made a fool of himself, in a way that I couldn't even be mad or laugh at him. It was like he just walked in. She went silent, then took a long, deep breath. For years. I've been building that wall for years. Nobody questions it. Nobody gets to question it. Nobody sees through it. Nobody even tries. And then he comes along. He didn't even try. He just stepped past it. He was just there. Like the wall didn't even exist. He had the nerve to touch me and almost knocked me right out from behind my own defense. Silence. It's unacceptable. Roxy watched her face. She knew that tone. It wasn't anger. It was something else. The sound Nova makes when she can't categorize something. And Nova categorizes everything. She sees everything. She gets everything. It seemed Vane Vexley was the first and only person this didn't work on. Are you mad? Roxy asked softly. Nova didn't answer for a second. I don't know. It was the most honest sentence Roxy had ever heard from her. Because Nova always knows. Then Nova, under her breath, almost to herself. So yeah, it was a good night. Chapter 3.2. Late afternoon, April 1998. The concrete lot. The concrete lot behind the school felt like a strange, transitional space at this hour. The sun wasn't burning anymore. It just dimly lit the cracked asphalt, as if the light itself had grown tired after the long winter. The air still held the last of the afternoon warmth, but cooler shadows were already stretching along the walls. It was that time of day when the city slowed down, and you could hear your own thoughts a little more clearly. Cayde had been circling on his board for a while. No tricks, no flashy moves, just rolling, turning with the momentum, then hitting the same arc all over again. The steady hum of the wheels gave the space a strange rhythm. Vexley sat on the edge of a nearby bench, elbows on his knees, quietly watching the vibration in Cayde's movements. It looked like his friend was searching for something between the cracks in the concrete, something even he couldn't quite name. "One more lap and you'll punch a hole in space-time," Vexley joked. When the two girls appeared around the corner, Cayde instinctively slowed down. He didn't stop completely, just started carving smaller circles, making it look accidental. Nova entered the space first. Her movements were loose but precise, her posture radiating a natural, effortless confidence. Roxy followed behind with wider gestures, as if she wanted to touch every surface that crossed her path. "So, did everyone survive the last party?" Cayde asked when they got close enough. Roxy flashed a grin, but her movements became noticeably smaller and more guarded as she realized they had an audience. "Barely. You?" "Always." Cayde shrugged, popping his board up. As he started talking, he stepped closer to her. It wasn't a conscious move. It just happened that his voice wasn't for the whole lot anymore. It was just for her. Roxy stiffened for a split second, then instinctively crossed her legs. It wasn't a pose. Her body just reacted faster than her head. Nova caught the movement immediately. Vexley's gaze flickered to it, too. Cayde only felt the sudden shift in the air. The tension became something you could almost touch. "So, what brings you guys around here?" he asked casually. "Just walking, checking out the local wildlife," Roxy shot back, drilling her eyes into Cayde's. Cayde laughed. "Well, you're in the right place, then."
Meanwhile, Nova and Vexley stood facing each other. Not too close, but no longer strangers. Nova's posture changed imperceptibly. Her shoulders tightened slightly, her chin tilted a fraction higher. She was consciously raising the wall she always felt safe behind. There was no hostility in it, just a disciplined distance. And just to be sure, she added another layer to the wall. "Hey," Vexley said. "Hey," Nova replied. Her voice was calm but razor-sharp, as if every syllable had been measured in advance. A tiny pebble lay between them. Nova kicked it away by reflex, harder than she intended. The pebble skittered under the bench. Vexley stepped after it, leaned down, and picked it up. He spun it between his fingers for a moment, then looked at Nova. "Do you always clear things out of your way that fast?" he asked. Or was this a personal beef with this low-life, clearly malicious pebble? A huge smile broke across his face at the end of the sentence. Not a calculated, trying-to-impress smile, but the kind of light-hearted ease that comes when someone is just comfortable in their own skin. Nova was caught off guard for a second by how natural he sounded. No pressure, no need to prove anything, just playfulness. "I don't usually clear anything," she finally said. The sentence landed awkwardly in the air, and Nova felt it immediately. Something was off. That wasn't how she wanted to say it. It was too serious, too defensive for something as small as a pebble. For a moment, even she was confused by her own response, as if the words had just slipped out before she could arrange them properly. "I mean, I just don't like having things under my feet," she added quickly, but that only made her feel like she was digging herself deeper into the strange, clunky embarrassment Vexley had triggered. Vexley nodded and handed her the pebble. Nova hesitated for a heartbeat, then took it. Their fingers brushed briefly. Vexley was openly smiling at her now. Not pushy, just a bit incredulous, as if he were enjoying the sudden lightness he'd found. "Okay, I'm relieved then," he said. "There's hope for us yet." Nova involuntarily raised an eyebrow. This guy.
He's joking. And what's worse, he's not trying. That was when Nova truly understood what bothered her about him. It wasn't what he was doing. It was what he wasn't doing. He didn't have that familiar tension, that deliberate approach you could spot from a mile away. This guy wasn't playing games. That's what made him dangerous. He wasn't storming the wall. The wall simply didn't exist to him. To Vexley, she was an open book, and he didn't see any reason why he shouldn't just start reading. You can't lock someone out if they don't even see the door you're trying to slam in their face. Vexley looked away for a moment, as if he wasn't sure where this sudden freedom had come from either. Usually, he overthought everything, weighed every option. But right now, he felt light, in a way he rarely did. Like the girl's presence had dissolved some invisible knot inside him. Anyway, he added over his shoulder, "This is a good spot. I mean, I don't know. It's easier to breathe here." Nova let out a quiet breath. So why was it getting so much harder for her?
Chapter 3.3. Same night. 4 separate rooms. Cayde. Cayde sat on the roof outside his room, legs dangling over the edge of the shingles. This was where he always climbed out through the upstairs window whenever he wanted to be alone. He wasn't running away. He just liked watching things from up here. From this height, everything seemed a bit simpler. He thought of Roxy. Not her face, not her body. Her reaction. That brief tensing up. The reflex, the way she crossed her legs. The way she fired back a bit too fast, like she was trying to pull herself back from a ledge. Cayde slowly smirked. "So that's how it is," he said quietly. He'd always known he had an effect on women, mostly after Vex pointed it out to him. He never really had to try that hard. The accent, the effortless confidence, that natural closeness that people often mistook for courage. He was used to people wanting something from him, but this wasn't that. This was when someone doesn't want to want you. And that's exactly why they start reacting. This was when you can make someone lose their balance with just a few sentences, because there's something working between you. This was new to him, and if he was honest with himself, he fucking loved it. It wasn't sex he was thinking about. It was that moment when you feel the other person buzzing on the same frequency. When you're not just talking anymore, but actually getting under each other's skin. Cayde leaned back against the cold roof and let the thought wash over him. Maybe he'd play with this for a bit. Not out of spite, just because he was curious to see how far it could go. Maybe it would turn into love. Maybe just better sex. Right now, he didn't really care about either. He just cared that something finally happened in that department that wasn't average. The half-smile stayed on his face. Nova. Nova stood naked in front of her bedroom mirror after her shower. She wasn't in a rush to get dressed. No real reason. She just couldn't move on yet. Her skin was still warm, her hair clinging damply to her shoulders. The room was quiet. Too quiet, considering how loud everything felt inside her. She tried to replay that moment from the afternoon. Vexley's face. The way he looked at her. It wasn't the words that bothered her. It wasn't how close he got. It was how he just stepped into her guarded space, knocked her off balance, and all the while, he looked at her like it was perfectly fine. Like nothing out of the ordinary was happening. Like it was just natural for her, Nova Renly, to be the center of the universe. Like he was saying, "Relax, I'm here. I'll catch you if I have to."
Nova clenched her fists against her thighs. This wasn't a manageable situation. If the guy was just hitting on her, if his intentions were clear, she'd know exactly what to do. One night, one decision, a closed story. She'd walked away from plenty of those. But this was different. This clown just showed up, trashed the stable order she lived in, and then stayed right there by her side like it was his job to hold her up if her little world tipped over. Without asking for a damn thing. Nova slowly scanned her body in the mirror. She was waiting for some clear sign, for excitement or lust to give her a logical explanation, for what she felt to be just some heavy sexual tension. But that wasn't it. She just stood there, naked, completely exposed, and realized that this was exactly how she felt when he walked through her walls without thinking, without even trying. And for the first time, it hit her that maybe the scariest part wasn't him knocking her off her rock-solid life. It was that something inside her wanted to believe he was actually there, that he'd catch her if she needed him to. Nova stepped away from the mirror in silence, lost in thought.
Vexley. Vexley sat on the edge of his bed, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. The room was draped in semi-darkness, with only the dim, sickly orange glow of a street lamp filtering through the window. He didn't bother with the light. The noise inside his head was already louder than anything around him. Over and over, the girl's face flashed in his mind. Not what she had said, but that intangible moment when Nova had simply turned her gaze toward him. Vexley exhaled slowly, then smirked, more in disbelief than out of any real joy. Holy shit, he muttered to himself. This girl. There had been girls in his life before. Pretty ones, funny ones, wild ones. But this was different. This wasn't some typical crush, nor was it a hunter's instinct to make a move. It was more of a realization, one that made everything inside him suddenly go quiet. It was as if a very old, lurid concept he'd never been able to put into words had suddenly stood before him in flesh and blood. Nova Renly wasn't just a girl. Through her, Vexley was suddenly confronted with the very existence of woman with a capital W, even if he didn't truly understand what that concept meant yet. He let out a and collapsed back onto the bed. Okay, this is bad. He didn't mean bad as in a mistake. It was just that nothing had ever hit him with this kind of elemental force. He didn't want to win her. He didn't feel the need to prove anything to her. He just knew that when she was near, he started functioning differently. More directly, more clearly, with less of that usual tension. It was liberating, and dangerously terrifying at the same time. Fine. I guess this is how it's gonna be from now on. It wasn't a choice. It was more of an acceptance of something he couldn't change even if he tried. Roxy. Roxy lay face down on her bed, her headphones clamped so hard against her ears it almost hurt. The music was a wall of sound, a desperate attempt to drown out the restless, electric hum trapped deep in her bones. A rhythm that wasn't hers, pulsing stubbornly under her skin. She rolled onto her side, the movement making her t-shirt right up her waist, leaving a strip of bare skin exposed to the cooling air of the room. The contrast made her... She became hyper-aware of her own body, the unfamiliar tension in her breasts, and that heavy, warm pull in her groin
that seemed to anchor her to the mattress. "This is fucking ridiculous," she whispered into the dark, her voice sounding thin and strange. But it wasn't. For the first time, she was feeling what it was like when she didn't call the shots. When the rules she'd lived by simply stopped applying. She wasn't the one setting the pace anymore. She wasn't the one drawing the lines. Her own body had gone rogue behind her back, turning on her with zero subtlety, showing her exactly what it wanted, and exactly who it wanted it from. She replayed his voice in her head over and over. His proximity. That suffocating moment where every word he spoke made her feel like she needed to crawl out of her own skin. Or perhaps deeper into it. As if that calm, effortless presence and that damn accent were enough to make her completely come undone. Her body gave a slight involuntary at the memory. It wasn't a painful feeling, but it was raw, sharp, entirely unfamiliar. Roxy closed her eyes, clutching the edge of the pillow. She didn't try to claw back control. She just lay there, letting the realization sink into her marrow. She thought she was a queen playing with bonfires, lighting them however she liked. Then this guy showed up, and she realized she'd just been fucking around with matches the whole time.